have a prayer, and I'm going to ask all the best to lead us in prayer. We're going to say the pledge of allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we are again grateful for this.
Okay. Let's have a roll call.
Report of Alderman roll call for special meeting dated August 21st, 2018. Alderman Betts.
Here.
Alderwoman Dorey. Alderwoman Dorey is noted to be absent. Alderman Gardner. Alderman Gardner is noted to be absent. Alderman McCoy. Alderman McCoy is noted to be absent. Alderman Probst. Alderman Probst is noted to be absent. At this time, Mayor, a quorum is not present.
Okay, I'm going to first, number one, is just a correction, Jay, it's not a special meeting, it's a public. Is that right, council? We need to specify this if it's a special call meeting. It's a, even though it's a public hearing.
The notice says a public meeting will be held.
Okay. Now, no action is being taken. However, I do want to note that we will still discuss publicly the things that we want to deal with tonight, which is the hydro royalty calculation as far as what would be considered for any kind of rebate, and that's why we're here to discuss that tonight. Does everybody have one of these? It's got the calculation on it. If you don't, we have copies up here if you'd like one. You know, in all honesty, the total royalties that was paid to the town this year are down, I think, how much over? $1.2 million. So this is going to be a difference that you see from the previous year while we had a rebate, and this year while we do not. This is not anything, this has nothing to do with spending, has nothing to do with anything but the hydro itself. The royalties total $10,500,000, and the participation cost, which is the money that we have to pay for our 6% that we give the hydro, that totaled $8,353,000. And then also in the calculation, which followed the ordinance, the next thing that you would remove from that is the 38 mills, which is a calculation of our normal cost of power and energy that's paid per kilowatt. Is anything that's above the 38 mills, exceeds 38 mills, that's given to the town, and that amount sometimes runs, you know, in the neighborhood of a little over $100-something thousand a month, and we have that calculation if you want that. But the 38 mills calculation totals $2,254,259, and when you do the subtraction on that, that only leaves, it doesn't leave anything. Matter of fact, you were over $58,134. So there's no money available for rebate on this particular calculation. That record reflect Alderman Probst is here. So Alderman Probst, I will just give them the calculation and just going over, you know, how we got to that this year. And, you know, understanding that, again, this has nothing to do with anything with the budget of the town. This is strictly ordinance 588, which deals with the establishment of how to operate and disperse the hydro funds. So, with that being said, we have tonight, we have Elizabeth Tanner here with us, who is our hydro guru, who has really puts a lot of work into this and making sure our calculations are right. Does a lot of spreadsheeting for us and calculations for us and things of that nature. So she's here to answer any questions somebody might have. And also, while we are here tonight, I would like to explain something that I'd like to see us going forward, that as we deal with this ordinance, is how we deal with any excess reserves in the future. But at that point, I'm going to ask Alderman Betts and Alderman Probst if they have any questions at this point. Okay.
You said that the royalties were down how much?
This fiscal year they were the 10.5, and last year it was 11.76. So right at 1.2 million.
So
Okay.
there's your money there that we, you know, that was rebated last year. The hydro was not, it did not make as much last year as they did the previous year because, and there's been some various factors going on, and I'll be glad to tell you a little bit about those that I know about firsthand. MISO, which, it has control over all the power plants and power generating, people that put power onto the grid all over the state, actually all over the South. And what happens, they control who generates and who does not. They tell people when and what they can do. The hydro, you know, that has waters that flows through it and into the Chaffalaya Basin, and also you have the Old River Control Structure, which is right below it, that diverts water to the Chaffalaya. And the Corps of Engineers requires 30% of that flow from the Mississippi River going through those two things, the hydro and the Old River Structure. They have to maintain 30% of the flow of the Mississippi River has to be diverted through those two into the Chaffalaya, okay? So when MISO at night, when there's no demand for power, there's nobody needing generation, well, MISO will call the hydro and tell them, you've got to close some gates, you're producing too much power, we can't get rid of it. So what they have to do is they close those gates and it curtails their production of producing electricity. So they have to shut that down, so it's like telling them, turn it off, you can't make any more power. Well, the Corps of Engineers, something we've been trying to negotiate with the Corps. The Corps only allows one gate change a day, okay? So if they call the hydro at 10 o'clock tonight, tell them to close these gates, the Old River Control Structure has to open up gates, and they only can open it up that one time. Well, they're bound for 24 hours that they can't change the gates. Hydro can, and the Old River can. So what that does is the next morning when demand for power is back up, the hydro's hands are tied to generating and reopening all their turbines to be running and flowing. They can't because they're under the one gate change. So this has been something that's been hitting them more and more each year, because there's another thing, there's a transmission line north of town called the Red Gum Line, which Energy owns, that has been having some capacity carrier problems that they're supposed to be getting fixed toward the end of this year and into next year. So that's going to really help. Plus, ourselves, all the people, Brookfield and everyone with hydro is trying to work with Corps Engineers to allow multiple gate changes. So we're trying to do everything we can on our side to get the production back up for the hydro. So that's just look, it's a little more complicated than that because you get into some other stuff, but that's it in a nutshell. The easiest way I can explain it as far as why their production is going down. And also the revenues are down because the cost is down too, that they, by contract, that Elizabeth can allude to here in a little bit if anybody has any questions. Any questions after that part? Clear as mud, huh? All right. Also, one other thing I want to talk about, and then I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to talk. One of the things that I would like to see us do is, for example, last year, you know, we paid a royalty of $600,000, and there were $600,000 available for, you know, projects within the town. I would like for any future mayors, any future councils to be limited that they can't obligate any future revenues other than that amount for any kind of project. And let me explain what I'm saying. For example, let's say that the $300,000 that the council wanted to take out of the calculation for this community complex, the $300,000 a year note. Okay, we took that out of the calculation, which was going to be a bigger part to the people. Well, if they would have gone in and obligated the town for a big project, several $1 million, and for future payments for 30, 40 years, you will never see a rebate because they would be obligating. I don't think my mayor's term should be able to obligate future mayor's terms of spending their possible rebated money for projects. So, for example, that $600,000, provided we don't have to use it for power, should be available. That should be all we should be able to spend for that particular project and spend it within my term. So that's just a thought, just something for us for conversation. Questions or comments from here down with this? Elizabeth, if you'd like to add anything to Or just wait for a question, I don't know.
No, I mean, I would just, you touched on it earlier, the overall cost has gone down for Entergy and Vidalia. It went from 175, or from 205 to 175 to now 150. And your royalty percentage did not go up that much, so the royalty overall, that's one of the reasons that the royalty is lower overall, plus your overall revenue from everybody is less, so. Until that gap widens a little bit.
Would you
which it
take
will.
that into the future a little bit, while you're talking about
Sure.
projection of?
So,
What's that
for the past at least 10 to 15 years, the royalty percentage has been increasing about 0.1% a year. But, from 2017 to 2018, it went from 7.9% to 8%. Well, between 2018 and 2019%, it's going from 8% all the way up to 9.2%. So that's a big jump. And then in 2020, which is not that far away, it goes up to 10.4. And then after 2022, it's 20% forever. Well, not forever, just until at least 2030.
So if we would take the same
Sure, so.
level of this year and change the percentage?
Yeah, so everything else remaining constant, the rate, let's say that the production remains exactly the same. The town is projected to net around, 4.5 million next year. 2020, that, goes up to about 6.5 million netting, which means royalty minus your power costs. 2021, about 8.6 million, and then in 2022, it's netting anywhere from 18 to 20 million. So there's just a little bit longer,
Couple years.
couple of years.
Get close. Get close. Any questions from? On the approach, on the bets, any questions?
I think the big problem that we've had in the day is we've obligated ourselves for, started off with a 40-year note, it's got to be a 30-year note by now. And if we do what you're talking about with the hydro money, year to year obligated, don't obligate it long-term, because we're gonna start getting some serious money. We need to pay off our indebtedness, and that'll give us money for infrastructure rather than long-term debt.
Well, you're exactly right.
And Bill, you, if that long-term debt of 30, whatever you're talking about this complex?
Well, the complex and just.
That's all that's left on the hydro.
Well,
That's
yeah, that's
not
all.
even on the hydro, they took it
Well,
all.
you have to pay for it with the hydro.
No, we're not.
Well, it used to.
Well, we did, but they backed it out of the equation, that's why, you know, the general fund is tough to make that note. Because that note was made on the premise that it was gonna be paid out of hydro. But see, for this particular year, you wouldn't have money to pay the note either. So you would have had to pull it out of general fund anyway. That's why I don't think, right now, we should obligate future terms, you know, and strap them with a debt that, you know, that they might not have the money to pay. But we know they will, because 15 million or 18 million here in 3 or 4 years is pretty significant. We just need to be very prudent and good stewards of that and how to handle that going forward.
You know we'll have plenty of money, because it's coming, unless you get another administration, and they just, well, we got plenty of money, let's spend plenty of money.
Well, we're gonna try to fight that, I promise you. We hopefully reverse that trend, so.
Yeah, I think making everything out front like this, and showing the calculation, how it's calculated, and what the ordinance says about how it's calculated, will go a long, long way in preventing that.
We've got to simplify it. It's black and white. To me, it's boom, boom, boom. It says you take your revenues and then it goes right down the line.
And it's each year, it's encapsulated in that year, your revenues and your cost of power, your 38 bills that year, and that's passed. The next year you do the same thing, it's pretty simple.
Now, I'm not saying going back and calculating what could have been paid in the past. I don't want to necessarily go there. That's water under the bridge. All we can do is go forward with it. So. And that's what I think we should do. Rick, go ahead.
So what you're saying, there's no money available for rebates this year?
This year.
Which means there's no money available
projects this
There's
year.
no money.
Period, yes.
Right.
Well, last year, there was rebate money, and therefore there was project money.
Was project money.
And what was it spent on?
Okay.
Is it still in the bank?
It's still in the bank up to 400 and I think, how much was the balance in it now?
468.
Okay, now, see, that money was sitting there, thing, y'all remember here, several months back, we had to draw against a line to pay for power. So we used some of that money, you know, to pay for power, which is a priority. You know, that's number one, is about power. But there's 400 and, it wasn't spent on anything else but to buy power and to pay for that. So we had to go into that money a little bit, so that brought that down to 458?
468.
468,000 of the 600.
That's still there.
Still in that for a project or something.
The way I understand it, Ricky, the way I can understand it is the hydro fund is all hydro monies. And once the calculation is made and the rebate's given, that money is then done in a rebate, just like you spend money on power, whatever it's gone. The other money's still in the fund, and the priority is 1, 2, 3, 4 to apply to that money in the fund. So if you have to go into that to pay power, that's the first priority. And even if you used it up and you had to go into reserve establishments after number 1, 2, you would have to do that. So that's what happened this past year.
Yeah.
Some power cost had to be paid out of that, some of that 600,000.
And the 38 bill calculation went up strictly because you had those spikes this year in our cost of power. 1 year, I mean, 1 month, if you remember back, it was 600,000, which normally runs 280, 300,000. I mean, it spiked, it was horrible. It was, so.
Kind of hope that we'd be here, better, financial status, discussing projects that we could, spend this excess money on.
Well,
And we just have to, if there's something, we just have to compile a list, and that's what and like this, council was saying, we'll have to compile a list, and the public kind of, you know, say, hey, this is what we'd like to do, you know. What you got there?
I'm just curious about our owner people not being here. It's not mandatory that anybody has to do anything.
I know that, I think Robert had to work, I don't know about, I think Sabrina might be sick, somebody said she sounded horrible on the phone, but,
Robert called.
Robert called.
His job, he can't believe his job.
But, anyway, Elizabeth, John was asking on the 38 meals calculation, you want to explain that to him, that's our cost, and you get, cost of your power, that has so many meals, and whatever's above 38 meals, what that cost was, it can be deposited into the, utility fund.
Sure, so several years ago, the auditors, we developed a spreadsheet to keep track of number 4, which is the 38 mils calculation. It's basically the normal cost of energy to the town, how much the town pays for the energy. So we take the bill we get from LIPA, we take the bill we get for LIPA Unit 1, and on those bills is the amount of kilowatt hours used. And so it's just a LIPA bill plus Unit 1 divided by the kilowatt hours, and that gives you a millage amount. And anything over 38 mils is allowed to be transferred from hydro to the utility fund on a monthly basis. And like Mayor Kraft said, it usually runs around 150 to 250 a month. Not, maybe 1 to 2 is more accurate. In January, it was 404 because the town's power cost was so high. So it's just, it's a spreadsheet that's updated each year. The auditors review, and that's cost calculated. Very trackable, very black and white.
One of the things, it just, because of the, production wasn't there, and the, costs were a little up, it's just, that's where it's at, I mean, I promise you that it hurts me that we're not giving a rebate, I can tell you that. But I will say that, to say this, that we're also working very hard on getting these rates right, and we want to get them right, we're going to get them right. So, anybody got anything else?
I just want to make this one statement, Ricky, John can attest to this, that there were years in the past where the same thing, regardless of what you think about the years in the past and the hydro revenue, there were years
we're gonna do this again Thursday night. You're welcome to come back. It might be different faces, different questions, but I wanna do this every year because I wanna be completely open with the people and show them the calculation, give it to them, prove it to them, because it's black and white, it's what it is. And, again, thank y'all for taking your time out tonight. And, we're fixing to get a rain in